Good afternoon, students, and welcome to EJC online classrooms. I'll be your facilitator for today. I am Monique Atkins Cornwall, and today we will be doing office administration. But before we begin, a few things. First, remember to sanitize. That sanitizer through your fingers. We don't want to end up with COVID. And even if we have it, we want to get rid of it, all right? So now that we are sanitized, let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, we thank you for having allowed us to be here today as we are about to go through the lesson, not just of life, but of you. Be with us. Take us through an episode that we might all understand. In your Son's name I pray. Amen. So today, I'll be taking you through office administration, and our topic is office orientation, as you can see on the screen. But when you see or when you hear about office administration or office orientation, you might be of the view that it is not important. But let me bring you to a biblical reference that we have of the importance of office orientation. In the Bible, it is recorded, that is in Mark 6 verse 3, that Jesus was a carpenter, right? And as a carpenter, you might say that Jesus would not need an office. Well, at the end of today's lesson, then, you will see differently. Today, you will agree with me that he had many professions. And the professions are based on our situations, or whatever situations he finds himself in. Some of those professions are being a teacher, like I am, a doctor, a fisherman, an engineer, lawyer, and accountant, right? So whatever profession you are, of course you're going to need an office, right? I hope you're getting where I'm going. So I'm telling you now that, of course, being a carpenter, Jesus would need an office. And you, in whatever professions you decide to take on, would also need an office. Therefore, office administration is important, right? Now, where I'm going with this, you might ask, right? We are all engaged in or aspiring to be engaged in various professions, as I was saying, right? But no matter the profession, we would need an office to ensure that we can carry out our productive activities and to store our records. Now, these are our objectives for today, and these objectives were extracted from the Office Administration CXC curriculum, right? The first objective is to describe the roles and functions of an office in the business, to also describe how office structure and activity may be organized according to the size and nature of a business. The other objective is to compare different types of office layout. The other is to examine the ergonomics of an office as it relates to comfort, health, and safety issues. Also, we will go through describing the contributions of various types of equipment to office efficiency and propose desirous skills, attitude, attributes of office personnel. And then we will assess the value of human relationships in office efficiency, right? Sounds like a mouthful, yes? Yes, but in no time we will be done. Here are some key terms, and of course for these terms, you will hear these terminology throughout the topic and throughout the course, right? So these terminologies you would need to know. The first one is an office, good? And an office is a place or wherever management of our staff carry out their administrative, communicative, reprographic, and clerical activities of an organization, right? So wherever the management and the staff carry out their activities, their productive activities, that is an office. Good? Notice in brackets it says a place. Good? Which brings me back to my first point that I was making, that it doesn't matter what profession you engage in, you will need an office. The other term is administration. Good? And this is a wide range of activities connected with organizing and supervising the way that an organization or institution functions. Good? So all the activities that are engaged or combined to make that organization work or function, that is administration. And that will bring us back to some of the points or the terms that in an office: the administrative, communicative, reprographic, clerical. All of those summing up together would be administration. Orientation is a familiarization with and adaptation to a situation or environment. So any environment that you're getting familiar with or you're being welcomed into, that is orientation. Other terms would include organization. And this is an undertaking or an enterprise owned and operated by one or more persons working as a unit. And a unit means working together, working for one common cause, right? And that is to achieve certain corporate goal. So a group of persons or individuals working together to achieve one corporate goal. A business organization is an undertaking operated for the main purpose of making profit. So the difference between a business organization and an organization is that a business organization is undertaken with its main goal to make profit. Two other terms include goods and services. And for those of you with the other subjects such as principles of business and accounts and home management, you would know the definition of goods and services. So goods are tangible, right? Are material things such as raw materials, stock, furniture, vehicles, equipment, and foodstuff. Things that are tangible. Good? You can touch them, you can feel them, they're tangible, they are material things. While services are essential and useful, but they are non-material, meaning you cannot touch them, right? And examples of these would include telephone service, postal service, maintenance service, banking service, transportation service, and of course, education. You cannot touch education, therefore it's a service. You can touch a teacher and the desk and the chair and the books, but you cannot touch education. Right? So those are some of the terms that you would need to know while doing this course. Now we're jumping right ahead to the roles of an office. And there are 3 roles. The first role is that of the production of goods and services. Right? And of course, I'm going to be going through these individually. So the first role is production of goods and services. Remember, earlier on I told you that goods are tangible while services are intangible. Right? So the material are classified as goods, non-material, services. So the production of goods and services, that's the first role. The second role is the distribution of those goods and services, while the third role is the exchange of those goods and services. And we're going to be going through them individually with the first role, which is the production of goods and services. Productions mean to produce, to create, to manufacture, right? So the first role, to produce goods and services, requires the input of capital. And there are some terms, look at the terms that we have here, because as I go along, I'm going to be linking some of these content, these material to other subject areas as well. So, of course, we see production of goods and services. This means you're going to be producing goods and services which requires input. And some of these input include capital. And in this case, capital is money, right? The management and labor, which is manpower, humans, equipment and tools, which is machinery. So you're inputting money, you're inputting manpower plus machinery. You would also need land and building, that is the place, the location where you are going to conduct your productive activity. And you will need raw material. The raw material would be the resources, what you will need to conduct your productive activity, and the technology that you will use, right? So in production or in producing your goods and services, you need humans, you need money, because if you don't, first and foremost, you need money. If you don't have money, then you can't get the humans because you will need to pay the humans, right? So you need the money to get the humans, which is the manpower, and then you will also need the money, which is the capital, to get the equipment or the machinery. You will also need your building, so you're either going to buy a piece of lot or you're going to be renting an office space. And you will also need your raw material or your resources, whatever material you will need to produce or to make your goods or to offer your service, and you will need your technology. Good? So all of that is involved in the production of goods and services. Now, the role of the office in the production of goods and services is to raise capital in order to encourage sufficient management and labor personnel to purchase equipment and materials and deal with the necessary payments. So that is where your office comes in, right? And to efficiently carry out this role, you would need your production department or your operations department that will work closely with other departments. Remember, earlier I said your production department is where you will be carrying out your productive activities, where you're going to have all your resources and putting them together, right? So your production department or your operations department, in the case of goods, you will have production department. In the case of services, you will have operations department. Good? So your production or your operations department will have to work very closely with your purchasing and procurement department, your HR department, and as we go along, let me just give a little synopsis of these departments as well. So the purchasing and procurement department, that department is responsible for buying your goods and services. Whatever raw material you need, that department will be is responsible for buying those. Your human resource department is responsible for getting your manpower. So that department is responsible for hiring the personnel that you will need to work in the production process. Also, you would need to work closely with the dispatch and transport department. So if you are producing goods, your dispatch and transport department would be responsible for getting those goods to the customers, right? So if you look at it, look how many departments or offices we are going through right now. They would also need to work closely with the sales, marketing, and customer service department, because you would need to work also with your customers. Because if you are not working with your customers, you will not know what your customers want and able to satisfy their needs. So through your sales, marketing, and customer service department, you are going to be working with your customers. Your accounts department would be responsible for all payments and receipts. And then you will have your records and information management office, which will be responsible for keeping all the records in relation to the production process. So from procuring all the resources to getting them to your customers, all those paperwork is the responsibility of your record information management office, right? we are moving on to the other role, which is to distribute goods and services. So the first role we said was the production of goods and services. And the second role, the distribution of goods and services. To distribute goods and services, we would need capital, which is what again? The money. We would also need management and labor, which is the manpower, humans, us. And we would need machines, which would be the vehicles, because we're talking about distribution now. So the distribution would entail getting the goods from your location, from your place, to your customers. Good? So you would need your vehicles. So your small vans, your trucks, all of those vehicles. Now, in this role, the office is engaged in the sufficient staff to prepare advice notes. So all the documentation that will be involved in the distribution, the office is responsible for that. So some of these documents would include advice notes, delivery notes, schedule of routes and transportation, destination sheets, and gate passes, and to make arrangement with driver to transport goods. Right? And I need for you to make a note of these documents that you see here. Because what I need for you to do is to make a note of the description of these documents. And I want you also to give me some examples of them. So we are going to be drawing these documents. That's what I want for you to do. So make a note of these documents. You're going to give me a description of each, and you're also going to give me an example of each, which is a drawing of each. Fine, if you can't draw, you can print it. All right, that is accepted. You're finished with that, right? Wonderful. So, to effectively carry out his role, as in the office, the dispatch and transport department, I remember we said distribution. So distribution would involve dispatch and transport, right? So the dispatch and transport office will have to work closely with all the other departments. And remember we went through the departments earlier, and the departments are here. So they have to work with the purchasing department, the HR, operations, sales, marketing and customer service, accounts, and also records and information management. And if you're looking closely, you will realize that all the departments are linked. All the departments must work together. They must work together. So it does not matter what profession you are in or what productive activity you are engaged in, even if you're a dental surgeon, right? Or a carpenter. All your departments must be working together. So we're going to be moving on to our final role, which is the exchange of goods and services. So remember we went through the production of goods and services and the distribution of goods and services. Good? That's two. Now our third role is the exchange of goods and services. And of course, in exchanging the goods and services, right, we will need, again, money, which is our capital. We would also need the manpower, because we would need humans to facilitate the exchange process. And we will also need machines. So the machines will help in the exchange process. And the machines could be in terms of the cash registers. That's a machine, right? So that will facilitate the exchange process. The role of the office in the exchange process is to engage sufficient staff to convince the public to purchase goods and services, and to prepare correspondence and advertisement for sales promotions, to deal with orders, and to deal with sales documents such as invoices and sales slips. You might not recognize, when you go to the store to make a purchase, you would have received what is called a receipt. Now, the receipt is very similar to an invoice, right? You would have received an invoice before you made payment. Once you make payment, then you will receive what is called a receipt, right? But the look of it is just the same, just the name is different. Good, so that will be one of the documents that will be here as well. Now, to effectively carry out its role, as in the office, then the sales, marketing, and customer service department will have to work closely with the other departments. And look again, the departments have to work together. They cannot be working separate and apart from each other. If they do that, then the entire production process will not take place, because you will have the operations department doing their production, but it's not reaching the customers, simply because the production department is not working with the customer service department, right? You might also have that the production department is running out of supplies, but because they're not working with the accounts department and the procurement department, they will not get enough adequate supplies to do their production. They would need other personnel, humans, to work in the department. But if they are not working with the human resource department, they will not know that they need persons to work. So all the departments have to be working together, right? So in the exchange of goods and services, the sales, marketing, and customer service department must work closely with the purchasing, HR, operation, dispatch and transport, accounts, and records and information management departments. And of course, the records and information office, that office is responsible for all the records in all the offices, right? So those are the 3 roles. Good? So we're going to remind me of the roles again. The first one is, yes, the production of goods and services. The second one is the distribution of goods and services. The third one is the exchange of goods and services. Very good. Thumbs up. So we can now go on to our functions. Right? So these now are the functions of the office. So the office is responsible for collecting data. But collecting data from who? And note these, just as I did with the roles, I listed them and then I went into them separately. I'm going to be doing the same thing for the functions. So the functions are the collection of data, the processing of those data that was collected, the preservation of data, and preserve means to store, right, or to save, and the dissemination of that information. So if you look, you will notice there's a slight change in terminology. So the collection of data, data is raw or unprocessed facts. That's why we have data there. So the collection of data, the processing of that data to convert it into information. So the information is what you will save or preserve. And then that information is what you will disseminate. Disseminate means to distribute, right? And then the other function is to deal with the financial matters, stocks, and control methods. The other one is organizing an efficient staff and fulfilling organizational and legal obligations. And of course, we're going to be going through them individually, beginning with the collection of data. Of course, so when we are collecting data, the sourcing of data is important. The sourcing meaning where we get the data from. The source of data is important to be used in the process of planning, organizing, and smooth running of the business in order to meet the customer's demands. So where we get our data is important, because where we get our data will help us with the smooth running of our business. And in the smooth running, we can meet our customers' demands, right? This data is to be, and this data that is to be collected would include quotations, inquiries. So when customers call to make an inquiry, or they email to make an inquiry, or they fill up an inquiry form, inquiries. So quotations, inquiries, applications, estimates, telephone and fax messages, emails, correspondences, all those are our data that are collected and that will help us to meet the needs or the demands of our customers, right? That's the data collection. The other function is the processing of all that data that was collected. Remember, I said earlier that when we collect the data, we process it or we convert it or we change it into information. So the processing part involves converting all that data that we would have collected into information so that the related data is used by the managers and supervisors in decision making. And when they do their decision making, that will help them to facilitate or to meet the needs of their customers. Good? The other point is that information that would be converted into reports and charts and statistics. And these reports and charts and statistics will be used by the managers in order to make effective decisions, efficient and effective decisions. And these decisions now would help the organization to meet the demands of its customers, right? And then these information that we now gather would now be preserved, right? So in preservation of the information, we are saving information so that documents can be stored safely for future reference and be retrieved quickly by authorized personnel when required. So I hope you're following the process. Good? Some of these information that we are storing, and of course, you know all the storage devices. Yes? Because you use your thumb drive, the same thing you call flash drive or USB drive. So you have your thumb drive, you have your CDs, your DVDs, your SD cards, your hard drives. Good? So there are many types of storage devices that you can use to store your reports and your charts and your minutes and your correspondence, right? So I hope you're following the process, right? From the collection, right? So you're collecting the data, you're converting that data or processing that data, and then you're preserving that information. So now you collect the data, you turn it into information, and you save the information, right? And now we're going to be disseminating or distributing that information, right? So in the distribution of the information, authorized persons from inside and outside sources, such as giving information to the public and suppliers, employers, and the customers, right? So that same information that you would have collected, the data that you would have collected, converted it into information and stored it. Now you're issuing it to the relevant personnel, right, for use. And then now you're going to be dealing with the financial matters. Good? So dealing with the financial matters such as stock and control methods would include keeping records of accounts, payroll and wages, collecting debts, ordering equipment and materials, maintaining security of vehicles, plant, equipment, furniture, and employees, right? Because once you have company vehicles, you have to ensure that they are maintained. You have to also maintain the plant. The plant would be your building, the land, good? Also your equipment, so whatever machinery you are using in the production or the operations process, those machines will have to be maintained. Otherwise, of course, just like how we get tired, the machines get tired as well. Good? So the machines also need maintenance. Also the furniture, because they would need dusting. Once in a while they would need dusting, right? And your employees would also need maintenance. If your employees are working 24/7 non-stop, of course, they're going to be dropping down and dying because they are hungry and they're thirsty, they're tired. Good? So you're maintaining all of those in dealing with the financial matters. And then you're going to be organizing an efficient staff. Not just any staff, but you're going to ensure that your staff members in each department are efficient. Good? In organizing an efficient staff, you would have to ensure that you recruit. Recruit means to look around, ensure that you have persons that are qualified to work in each department, in each area. Right? So you organize an efficient staff by recruiting, training, and deploying staff to work and deploying staff to workload according to post and negotiating with trade union and employee problems. So when you look around to ensure that you hire the most qualified and efficient staff members to work in each department, if it's a case where there might be one short, then that is where the training comes in. Or if it's a case where you have some new equipment or new software, then that is where the training comes in. And you deploy them or you ensure that you put them in the relevant department that is in keeping with their qualifications and what they're able to do. And you're going to give them a workload to match what they're able to do, their capabilities. And then the final function is the fulfilling of organizational and legal obligations. Of course, the law comes in because whatever business that we're engaged in, whatever offices that we have to ensure that we abide by the rules of the government in whatever country we're in. So we have to ensure that we are fulfilling our organizational and legal obligations, right? So fulfilling the organizational and legal obligations by carrying out policies and decisions and observing statutory laws like taxation. So for the business, they would have to ensure they are returning their taxes to the government. And for those of you who were tuned in the last time when I did principles of business, when we did taxation, you would have seen the reasons for taxation. What are the taxes used for? Right? So of course it is important for us to return our taxes. So we're moving right along to the second objective, which is to describe the structure and activity that may be organized according to the size and the nature of a business. Good? So for the size and nature of a business, business organizations differ from others through ownership, method of control, source of material or source of capital, liability for debts, and accountability. Good? So for the ownership, of course, a business organization, and I strongly encourage you, for those of you who are doing office administration, I strongly encourage you now to do principles of business as well, because it's very interesting. And now that I am teaching office administration, I am now excited because I'm thinking principles of business, right? Because I can see here for ownership and those students who do principles of business with me, when we look at ownership could mean one person. And for one person, that simply means we would have a sole proprietorship. If it's 2 to 20 persons, we would have a partnership. Then we would have companies, right? That's what we are talking about when we refer to ownership. That is how many persons would own the business organization. And even when we come on to a company, we have a private limited and a public limited company. And the public limited company, those sell shares or stocks on the stock exchange market. And of course, I'm encouraging you to ensure that you are tuned into the business news where you see the different companies, and those that sell shares on the stock exchange market, those are classified as public limited companies. Private limited companies don't sell shares on the stock exchange market because those companies only include the family members and close friends. But PLCs sell shares on the stock exchange market. So that's what we're talking about when we say ownership. Then we have method of control and source of capital. Source of capital is where you get your money from to start your business. So is it your personal savings? Did you do a venture capital? Did you get the money through loan from a financial institution? That's the source. Then we look on the liability for debt. Is it a limited liability or unlimited liability? Who is held accountable? Right? And then the organization of office structure and activities depends on the size of the business. And remember, size means how big or how small, right? And how big or how small is dependent on the ownership. And then the nature of the business, and the nature of the business would include what the business is set up to do. And let me look at the size for you. So size of a business is determined by the ownership, the capital invested, the space available, the type of product, rate of turnover, and its location. So all of these will determine the size of the business, how big it is, how small it is. If it's classified as a small business, a medium-sized business, or a large business. Right, and remember I was explaining some of these earlier in the previous slide. Good? The nature of the business now is classified into three. We have the industrial nature, the commercial nature, and the service nature, right? So for the industrial nature now, this would include the use of natural resources. So like the farming, yeah. So those include natural resources. The commercial nature include trade, buying and selling, trade. And the service nature, that is essential but using non-material things. And remember, I gave you a whole host of them earlier. Remember, bear in mind, education is a service. Banking is a service. Telecommunication rather is a service, right? Those are some of the services. Transportation service, right? So those are some of the services that you can readily think of. And then these now are further categorized into three again. So we have the private organizations, and private organizations are those that don't make profit. You also have the non-profit making organizations, and those are organized to benefit its members at the credit unions. And the private organizations would include some of our would include our churches. Then we have the public organizations, and those are organized to benefit the public. Right? Then putting them both together in terms of size and nature, these are what will impact the size and nature of a business. The first is the multiplicity of positions of staff. Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, so you are saying, Miss, multiplicity of positions and staff? Miss, I can't even pronounce that word. Multiplicity, when we are breaking it down, comes from the root word multiple, which means to multiply or to make more. So yes, so the amount of positions that are available for staff, that is what is determining our size and the nature here. Because remember earlier, I said that this is the amount. If you have a lot of staff members, then of course you have a lot of positions available. So you would have a lot of different departments. Therefore, a lot of different staff would be needed to fill those departments. And the amount of staff that you would have is dependent on your nature, what your business is set up to do. If you are doing a simple just making, you alone, you don't need a lot of staff. So therefore you won't need a multiplicity of positions. But if you have a lending agency, you might need a lot more staff members. Good, so you will have more positions available. The other impact would be the types of the types and patterns of relationships, how each staff member would be related to each other, how would they be working together, also the nature of their duties and their responsibilities, what would each employee is supposed to do, what are they supposed to do, what are their duties, what are their responsibilities, what is their job description, and then your deployment of employees, how many persons are in each department, what are they set up to do in each department. And the other one is the decisions regarding centralization and decentralization. Again, those of you who the principles of business, you'll be seeing these terms again. So centralization or decentralization, that is if you're ensuring that for centralization, your equipment and all your material is in one central area. So all your equipment, so all the departments will have to go to one area to do their printing, to do their photocopying. And that is where you have a record and information management department. If you have a record and information office, then that will be centralization, because they would have all the equipment in one location, all the records in one location. Whereas decentralization, each office would have their own equipment and maintain their own records. So they would have their own printers, their own filing cabinets. That is for decentralization. And the other impact is the extent of computer hardware and software that will be used. So of course, some businesses, the nature of them is that they would need advanced computer hardware as well as software. And remember, hardware, for those of you who I teach EDPM, hardware are the tangible items of the computer system, those that you can feel, while the software are the programs that are installed in the computer in order for you to use them. Right? So companies that use extensive or large amounts of computer hardware and software, then those would be considered large businesses. Good? I hope you're understanding, right? Then the third objective that we outlined earlier is to compare the types of office layout. And there are 3. In some of your books note, in some of your textbooks, you will only see 2. However, there are 3 types of office layout, right? And of course, we're going to be going through them. So we have the first, which is the traditional enclosed or cellular office. The second, which is the open planned or the modular office. And the third, which is the virtual office or the e-workplace. And of course, the e-workplace is where we are now at with COVID. We are now working virtually, a lot of us. So this is where we would fall now with the virtual office and the virtual workplace, because now I'm here and we are corresponding. We are meeting in our different places online, right? Virtually. So we have the virtual office. And of course, I'm going to be explaining them to you individually. So the traditional enclosed or the cellular office. Now, when you think of enclosed, notice that there are 3 terms. Traditional meaning as the custom was, tradition, custom in old time days. So in old time days, traditionally, we are used to an office being 1 person or 2. So a little building or a little space, I can hold 1 or 2, Yes, traditional. And then when we look at enclosed again, a space that is enclosed. Good? Cellular, coming from the word cell, 1 unit. Right? So those 3 terminologies. So I am breaking it down so you can remember them. So a traditional, enclosed, or cellular office is the same. 1 unit traditional, 1 unit enclosed, cellular, right. So for these types of offices, they have rooms which seat 1 to 4 persons. And if you look at the diagram there, there's a diagram there that is showing you what is happening. Right? So these rooms seat 1 to 4 persons. They can't hold a lot of persons, so it seat 1 to 4 persons. They have artificial lighting. So not sunlight, but artificial lighting. So the light in the roof or on the wall. They have artificial lighting. Also, a door or doors for privacy, so they can be closed, they can be locked, hence enclosed, right? So a door or doors for privacy, and this minimizes noise and distractions. And look at those, these are the characteristics of a traditional office, but if you look at them closely, you will also see advantages and disadvantages coming out. The other characteristic is that it includes desk, chairs, shelving, and cabinets. So in a traditional office, then they will also have what we described earlier of decentralization. Because if you look at the diagram here, they have their own printer, they have their own computer system, and you see desk and chairs, and it is so arranged that each person has a small amount of space. Unfortunately, you can't see the door from this angle, but there would be a door to shut out the noise and the distractions, right? There would also be a filing cabinet, so if you look at the drawers, they will store their files there. Then we go now to the advantages and the disadvantages of this type of office. So for the advantages, of course, there is privacy. There's privacy because you're able to shut out all the other persons. So your privacy allowing for quiet and enabling concentration, provide extra security for confidentiality. So because you're able to close your door, so if you have things in your office or you would have left your personal belongings in your office, when you come back, it will be right where you would have left it because you were able to close your door, right? Also, you will have desk and chairs that can be locked. So you locked up your desk, you can lock up your desk and your chair, and when you return, it will be right there because it would not be removed. Also, for a cellular office, the next advantage, it fosters team spirit of workers to get along. So the three other persons that you're working with, or the 2 other persons that you're working with, then it fosters team spirit because you're working together as a team. The disadvantages, though, is that should in case all members in that office are gone and managers need to get into the office for some information, then they will not have access because there will be no key, they will be locked out. Also, the cleaners would not have access either to do their job as to clean up. There would also be less efficient use of space because you're having so many things jumbled up in the one office. So many big desks and cabinet and printer and photocopy and all of those, there will be a clutter, so it will be clustered, so you have less efficient use of space. Also, workers may be unproductive if they are lazy and don't get along well. So if it's a case where they're lazy and you are placed in a cellular office, what you're going to be doing instead of doing your productive work, you're doing your own work. Good? So for some of you, yes, I know children, I know. For some of you, you will spend the time, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, and all the other social networks instead of doing your work. Yes. So this goes for some of you. That's a disadvantage now for some of you. Right? So those are some of the advantages and disadvantages of a traditional office. Good, and we can now move on to a modular office or an open planned office. Notice open planned. The first one was enclosed. Now we have open planned. Look closely at the image that is there. Look at the difference. Observe the difference in this image as opposed to the previous image. Yes, make a note of the difference that you see because I'm going to be asking you shortly. So for the open planned office, these type of offices can accommodate 10 to 200 or more employees. Yes, I heard you. Very good. Yeah, very good. The staff room is an example of an open planned office. Yes, yes it is. Yes, yes, Johnny, very good. Your own classroom, yes, because if you look at the amount of you in a classroom on a normal basis, but no, not with COVID though, right? Remember, so many of you can't be in a classroom now because of COVID and the ministry stipulation. But yes, before COVID, your classroom could also be considered as an open planned office, right? So yes, I can accommodate 10 to 200 or more employees. They could also host employees of different levels. Look at the diagram again. We are going to delve into the diagram. If you look at where I'm pointing. You're seeing exactly where I'm pointing, right? So if you look here, you can look based on how they formulate their desk. These would be the lower level employees, and you will have the supervisors, and the managers would be here. Notice the cubicle, the difference in the cubicles. The management cubicle has one person, while the supervisor cubicle has two persons. And then if you look at the other desk now where you have everybody else, the rest of staff. Good? So if you look at just look at the office, then you will be able to differentiate the different levels of employees. Just look at the arrangement of the desk and the chairs, right? This type of office layout also makes supervision and teamwork more efficient, because the manager don't have to get up to go into a room to talk to his or her staff member. Good? You could just look across to see what is happening. You don't have to get up. Even when you're working as a team, you don't have to get up to go in another room to work with your teammate. Your teammate is beside you, so you can work easily, so you can easily converse. You will not need a landline in order to converse, because your team members are right there beside you or in front of you. So you can easily converse in order to carry out your productive activities. It is also easier to rearrange or to fit an extra desk. So should in case you have an extra employee, you can easily fit an extra desk there. Right? And notice again, as with the cellular office, that the advantages and disadvantages are coming out from the characteristics that we are now going into. The advantage is that it is easier to communicate with your workers. So as management, or as manager or supervisor, it is easier for you to communicate with your workers. There is no need for you to take up the phone and to call them, but it's not easier for you to communicate with them, right? As a manager also, you are able to oversee large groups because you can see exactly what is happening in the entire room. You would not need to get up to go to each person's office individually. You are able to see what is happening. You can also easily arrange and rearrange the desk and the chairs. And remember the diagram that we had? You could easily turn the desk the other direction. Along with the chairs, you can easily just go around the other side to work with your employee instead of having to go into another office. Another advantage is that all workers have easy access to cabinets. Let that soak in. They have easy access to cabinet. I'm going to ask you a question right here. Remember earlier, when we were talking about centralization and decentralization, if you look at this, this advantage where it says all workers have easy access to cabinets and equipment, tell me, what is that? Centralization or decentralization? Based on what I said earlier, what would that fall in? Centralization or decentralization? Yes, it would definitely fall under centralization because you'd have all the equipment and the cabinet in one area and all workers would have access to it. So that would definitely be centralization. The disadvantage is that you would have little privacy. So if you left your $10 on the desk, there is no guarantee that you come back and see it because it is in the eyes of everybody. So there is little privacy. It is also difficult to concentrate because there are so many persons in the office. Then for some persons can only concentrate in a quiet environment. But for the open plant office, you would have persons speaking across to each other, to their employees, to their co-workers. So for some persons, it would be difficult for them to concentrate. Another disadvantage is that you have personal items left on the desk will be left less secure. So you would have left your $10 or your bunch of keys or your pen, and somebody got a phone call and they're jotting down, but they say, oh, let me write it down, and they saw your pen and took it up, and that's it. So personal items left on the desk will be less secure, right? The other disadvantage is that it creates a culture of gossip and whispering. So of course you're whispering because you don't want to disturb your neighbor, but it also fosters a culture of gossiping because each person, each colleague, you're watching each other. And then you're watching each other and you're talking negatively about each other to each other. So it fosters gossiping, which of course is not good for us as Christians. Good? The other disadvantage is that individual workers have no control over temperature, lighting, and equipment. So because of, again, centralization, there will be one central place that will be controlling all the air conditioning units in the room. So individual workers can't turn up or turn down or turn off the air conditioning any at all. Not even the lights, right? Because it's centralization. So if it's a case where somebody is stuffy, then that person will probably have to take regular trips outside the room instead of having the maintenance personnel turn out the ACs, because that simply means it would be affecting everybody else in the office, right? So that is a disadvantage. Now we move on to the very interesting office, the one that we are all engaged in now, which is the virtual office or the e-workplace, right? So there is no physical location. Wherever you are, that's where your office is. So now you're at home, your school is at home, right? Your classroom is at home, your workplace is at home, right? This is a virtual office. So wherever you are, that is exactly where your office is, or that's exactly where your classroom is. Good. So employees work remotely using computers, emails, groupware, software, and other communication technology as what we are using now. So I am communicating with you now. You are, for some of you, you might be in the living room. For some of you, you're your dining room. For some of you, your bedroom, right? Or you might have a little extra room that you would use as a study, or you make it converted to your workspace. So that is your virtual school or your virtual office. Office can also be accessed from anywhere. And that is because you're using the technology, the communication technology, so the email, the internet, the web, right? Now, these are some terminologies that happen in the virtual office. You have what is called telecommuting. So in telecommuting, you're working from home using telecommunications, which is a telephone, right? It is telecommuting. You have the hoteling. So that's a work arrangement where unassigned desks and chairs are provided for telecommuters, which must be reserved for specific periods, right? So of course you're working from home. Yes, you're working from home, but you need to go into the physical office space. You will have to make a call ahead of time and let them know that you're coming in. So I'm coming into the office on Monday between 10 to 2. That is the hoteling, right? So you'd have make reservations for the office, the desk, and the chair that is available there for a specific period of time. That's for the hoteling. While the hot desking is also working from home, but you go into the office without notice, right? So it's a work arrangement where employees are not given their own desk. However, fully equipped desks are available when needed. So the desk and chairs are there. Once you go into the office, you just sit at any desk. You're not assigned any specific desk or chair. You just go in. Whichever desk and chair are available when you go in, you just use that. That is the hot desking. But remember, the hoteling now, you have to make reservations. Just like when you go into the hotel, a normal hotel on the North Coast, you have to make a reservations. Hoteling, right? So those are some of the terminologies that you must remember in the virtual office. Now, the virtual office also has advantages and disadvantages, just like with the cellular and the modular office. So here are some of them. The virtual office advantage, it's cost effective as costs such as rent and electricity are eliminated. So because you don't have a lot of employees there, then the use of electricity is minimized. Also, you would not need to rent a large office space because all the employees will not be there at the same time. It's in a small area, so when the employees come in, just come in, do what they have to do, and then they go. So you don't need a large area to be rented. The other advantage is that it increases the firm's flexibility because different employees come in at different times. That is the flexibility. Whichever time that they are most comfortable coming in, that's the time they come in. So, flexibility. Also, employees can be hired irrespective of their physical location. So, you can have persons working in Jamaica or working for a company in Jamaica, but they're not in Jamaica. They're in Japan or China or England or Russia, right? So, irrespective of where you are, you can be hired at a company. You are living in Kingston, but you're working at a location in Montego Bay. And that's all because of the virtual office. The disadvantages, however, is that there is lack of face-to-face communication, which may lead to miscommunication. Because when you can't see somebody, it's easy to miscommunicate, right? Because they might say one thing, but because you're not seeing their facial expression, your understanding of what they would have said is taken in a negative light. So that is a disadvantage of the virtual office. Also, you will have workers may lack team spirit because of the feeling of separation. So because in your office, you don't have your team members because you're the only one at home. Your team members are not there. So the team spirit that you would have if you're working together, it's not there because you're at home alone, right? And even if you're on the phone with them, it's just not the same as if you're working together in the same space. The disadvantage is that workers may experience technical difficulties with their equipment. So like no, many of us are experiencing technical difficulties because we have outage, so we have electrical outage, that is electricity, and we have internet outage. Those are technical difficulties for us. And we can't control those technical difficulties, right? So we would experience technical difficulties that we have no control over, but JPS and Flow and Digicel would, right? So we have gone through 3 office layouts. Remember them? Yes? Yeah, I know you remember the virtual office now. Yeah, so the virtual office, good. Yes, the cellular office and the modular office. Very good. Very good. We're moving on to the other objective, which is that of examining the ergonomics of office as it relates to comfort, health, and safety issues. And of course, all of this relates to an office, right? You see, yes or no, you see a big word, ergonomics. For those of you who do EDPM with me, of course, ergonomics is a science, right? Yes, anything with mix is a science. I agree with you. So, ergonomics is a science which concerns the designing of the job, the equipment, and the workplace to benefit the employee's well-being and productivity. So, in short, it is how the employee designed the work environment to fit the employee. That's it. So the work environment in terms of the desk, the chair, the equipment to fit the employee to ensure that there is no damage done to the employee. Suitable chair, suitable desk, suitable lighting, all of that, ergonomics. Right? So you see, one big terminology become very small. Ergonomical issues will relate to the seating, the lighting, the ventilation, temperature, desk, and computer. Look at the images there. Because you have a role to play also in ergonomics. You have some of you, especially my boys, yes, you my kings, you sit and you slouch because you say, makes me feel comfortable like that. But of course, it's not good. It's not ergonomically sound because when you slouch, it affects your spinal cord. Also for those of us who hunch. So you have those who slouch and you have those who hunch. And when you slouch or you hunch, that simply means your desk or your chair or your computer might not be suitable for you in terms of height. Right? So these are some of the issues. So your seating must be comfortable. While you're on your seat, your feet must be flat on the ground, as in the second diagram here. Your feet must be flat on the ground. So if it's a case where you're short and your feet is unable to touch the ground, then you need something to rest your feet on. So a directory, because directories are fat, right? You could rest your feet on a directory if it's a case where you're short. Good? But your seat must be comfortable and your feet must be flat on the ground. There should be adequate lighting. So there shouldn't be flickering lights or dull lights because it's going to affect your vision. Also, there should be adequate ventilation. So air conditioning or the room should be open because for now we are not allowed to use air conditioning, right? So the room should be open so you have fans with the air circulating. And the temperature, so once you have adequate ventilation, then the temperature, so it will not be too hot or too cold, because if it is too hot, then of course you're going to be feeling fatigue. It's easy for you to get tired and droopy and weary. Good? And you should also have adequate desk. So your desk should not be too high. For when you're typing, your elbow should be 90 degrees or parallel those mathematics students. Your elbow should be at a 90. Let me ensure I show you. It's a 90-degree angle, running parallel to the ground, right? And your computer should be directly in front of your eyesight. So you shouldn't be looking up or looking down because it's going to be affecting your neck and your eye. You're going to be straining your eyes and your neck. And remember, your neck is where your spinal cord begins. Good? So these are some of the ergonomical issues that we will face in an office. And of course, for those of you who do EDPM with me, we go down to the meat of the matter with this. Some of the ergonomical related injuries will entail, you have repetitive strain injury, we call them RSI. So once you're doing a movement over and over and over, so once you're typing constantly, then we're affecting the fingers and the wrist with the carpal tunnel syndrome, right? So you have to ensure that once you're in an office and you're doing activities over a period of time, you have to ensure that you give yourself frequent breaks. Good, and you have to exercise your hands, your wrist, and your fingers. Good? Otherwise, they'll be stuck in one position too long. And you will have all these injuries to deal with, RSI and the carpal tunnel syndrome. You will also have the dry eyes, and that will be because of the ventilation, not adequate ventilation, so your eyes will be dry. And your eyes will also be strained because of the screen. So your screen should have a screen protector. And if the office is too hot, you will be fatigued. Good? So you may the fatigue may result if the office is too warm or it is poorly ventilated. You're not getting enough air to breathe, or you're too hot. Look at the diagram there, right? The gentleman is slouching, that lady is hunching. So now they have poor posture. Look at this office space here, where you have, to me, this looks like 20 million persons working in one office space. Of course, this is an open planned office, but it has too many persons working here. So there's not adequate ventilation for these persons that are here, right? So this is poor ergonomics, as you can observe. So this diagram, if you look at the workstation here, as I was explaining to you earlier, look at this workstation here. This is what a workstation should look like, a proper workstation in an office, right? That is what it should look like, right? Good. And of course, this diagram, because I want you to have it neatly in your books, of course, at the end, I will be distributing it to you guys so you can attach it or fix it neatly in your books. All right? While we are wrapping up, these are some of the equipment that will be used in your office. Of course, so you have some of them in your homes, some of them in the offices that your parents work. So you have the guillotine, which is used for cutting. Look at the diagrams here and try to identify the equipment that are here. So we have the guillotine, which is used for cutting, the shredder, photocopier, scanner, risograph. Underline that for me, risograph. Because I need for you to tell me what is a risograph. We have the printer, the computer, the multimedia projector, digital cameras, facsimile machine, which is the same that you call fax machine. This is just a fancy name. Laminator, binding machine, and labelers. Make a note of the risograph because I need for you to tell me what is a risograph. All right? Working in an office, you need to have certain skills. Remember I said that, right? So you need to have skills or abilities. You need to have attitudes, how you feel about working in an office, or how you feel about certain things in an office. And you have to have certain characteristics, which is your attributes, right? So your skills or your abilities would be literacy. You must be able to read and write. You must also be able to do mathematics, simple mathematics, numeracy. And you should also be able to to use a computer, typing using Microsoft Word and Excel and all of that, right? Microsoft PowerPoint is what I'm using now. You should also be able to communicate effectively, and you should also have proper time management and analytical and problem-solving skills. So not because something happened, you throw your hands up in the air. You should be able to solve that problem, right? Problem-solving skills as a personal working in an office. Some of the attitudes that you should have team spirit, so you should be able to work with other persons. Good? You should be tolerant. So you should be able to say, all right, I am like A, but you're like B. I should be able to tolerate your skills, right? How you are, your personality. So you should be tolerant or be able to tolerate somebody else. You should also have safety consciousness. So you don't just walk, the cord is there, you just walk, and you don't see the cord, or there's a protrusion and you don't see it and you just walk without a care in the world. You should also have environmental awareness, like now we are going green. Less printing, right? Do emails, less printing. And we also have social responsibility because we should be able to communicate with the other persons, right? So those are the attributes, attitudes, and we must be punctual. You must be on time, you must be punctual. You must also be have a positive work ethic. Should not be a negative person. God, you should be honest. So a person should be able to confide in you, and you should have willingness. Deportment is very important because the way how you carry yourself will determine if persons will want to come back to your organization to conduct business with you. You should also be confident and have a high self-esteem. Right? So those are some of the attributes and attitudes that you would have had as a person working in an office, right? So you see, now office is very important. Now, let me see what you have learned. Here is your assignment. I want for you to design for me a newspaper for someone who is to fill the administrative assistant position. Remember the list of skills that we went through, the attitudes and the attributes? Right. You're going to be using those to design a poster for me, an advertisement of an administrative assistant. Remember not to include those. Also, you're going to be writing a letter to a friend. Remember what we learned about ergonomics? Write a letter to the friend telling them what you learned about ergonomics. And that's 2. You are also going to do a virtual investigation. Remember, you're at home now, right? So I don't expect you to go on the road. You're using the resources that you have at home. So you're doing a virtual investigation for me. So do a virtual investigation of your school and identify the office layout of all the offices. So just imagine, you know what your school looks like. So imagine, all right, yes, that office. So write down the name of the office, so write down the person's office and the type of office layout. All offices and the type of office layout. And you're going to state the reason why you said that's that type of office layout. Good? And then you're going to make a list of some of the office equipment that you would use in an office, and you're going to tell me the uses of them. Not too hard, right? So those are what I want for you to do for me until next time. Remember, when we started, I told you that Jesus was a carpenter. Now here's what I want for you to brainstorm. Given the multiple professions of Jesus, what type of office layout would best suit his needs? Think about it. With his multiple professions, what type of office layout would best suit his needs? And of course, if you said office, then you already did office orientation, and I am, again, your facilitator, Monique Atkins Cornwall. Remember to sanitize, and Jesus loves you.